Welcome to your Choices History Moment. Today I'm going to tell you the story of Elliot and Annie. Elliot was born in 1860 to a wealthy New York family. His father was highly successful, as were his uncles. He grew up strong and fast, a great outdoorsman and athlete, even more so than his older brother. The whole family were outdoorsmen, but he excelled. But at some point, Elliot began to decline. He married, had 3 children with his wife, but inherited in 1878 a great deal of money as a young man. And he began to be called what they in those days referred to as the idle rich. He never worked. The rest of his family, wealthy or not, always had jobs. They were productive in some way, whether they wrote books or entered politics or public service, but they were all busy. Not he. He just enjoyed the money in a spendthrift fashion. He traveled the world. He hunted tigers in India. He did whatever he wanted to do. But finally, his downfall began when he began to drink. At first, he had what was called a small social problem with drinking, but then it became more severe. Finally, at one point, his family had him committed to a mental hospital in France in order to help control him because they considered him dangerous. His younger brother had to take over his finances because he was not responsible to pay his bills or spend his money carefully. And finally, it got to the point where he was considered such a danger to the family and such an embarrassment that the family exiled him to Virginia. They bought him a home there and insisted he live there away from his wife and children. They saw to his needs, but they couldn't have him in their home anymore. Elliot loved his little girl, Annie, very much. He wrote long letters to her, remembering the happy times they had together before his disease had progressed to the level that made him be separated from his family. Poor Elliot died at the age of 34 by jumping out a window, trying to commit suicide. He survived the fall, but died 2 days later of a seizure. And by this point, his alcohol consumption was 12 bottles of champagne or brandy a day. Completely dependent on his family, unable to function, he finally took his own life, leaving Eleanor, a young woman, without a father. Oh, I said Eleanor, right? Not Annie. Annie was her first name, but everyone knew her by the name Eleanor, her middle name. Eleanor was the niece of Teddy Roosevelt, the President of the United States, and Elliot was his brother, the only Roosevelt who wasn't successful in his life, the great failure of the family. He had a loving home, riches, good parents, but alcohol destroyed all of that. He later had a child out of wedlock with a maid. The Roosevelt family paid money to take care of the child. They took care of him. They did all they could. They surrounded Elliot with love, but it wasn't enough. In the end, the alcohol won. And that little girl, Annie Elliot Roosevelt, she grew up and she married Franklin Delano Roosevelt, her cousin, who became the President of the United States. She was the niece of one president and the wife of another. And she's remembered as history's greatest first lady, a campaigner for women's rights, civil rights, and the rights of the disabled. She was a powerful voice throughout her long life, despite the fact that she grew up with a father who was incapable of truly showing the love he felt for her, and in the end, lost his battle to alcoholism. It tells us a powerful lesson. We can achieve despite adversity, and we can fail despite riches and being surrounded by good people. It all comes down to us. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to another Choices History Moment.